Sponsor an orphan, and you'll help support a vulnerable child to have the education they've always dreamed of, so they can build a brighter future. You'll be feeding a hungry stomach and a hungry mind with knowledge that will last them a lifetime. That's the power of an education. Sponsor an orphan now with Islamic Relief.
All right, everybody. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Everybody, welcome back. This is a Monday kickoff. Hope you had a great weekend. I had a really good week working on the documentary, Black Man, my brother. Shout out to brother Ali Kasani and his crew that came down Washington, D.C. to shoot myself, my mother, my aunt, Miss Eleanor. And also shout out to Sister Nisa Muhammad, who availed us of the auditorium in the School of Sociology at Howard University. Shout out to HBCUs coming through again, making sure that we had what we needed. But since I had a really good weekend this weekend, I don't have to really go too much into it, but I will. Many of you are familiar with a project I was involved with. Back during Ramadan, we were raising money for it. The project was called Send Preacher Moss to Prison. One component was that we were trying to teach IT to returning felons. That was the brothers on the outside, trying to get them what I say high equity skills, high tradable skills, where if you get into the IT business, you can really expand in many regards, and you can increase your value. However much you want to learn, that's how much you can increase your value in the marketplace, which I thought was a tremendous thing. But the other part of it was that we were going to take comedy back to the prisons. That's where this weekend comes in. So several weeks ago, I would say a couple months ago, during Ramadan, as COVID had begun to, I want to say, recede a little bit. We weren't having as many projects or problems as we were with COVID. People weren't getting as sick. The prisons opened back up again. And what had happened with the prisons, that they essentially been shut down for a year and a half, 2 years. Some of the highest COVID rates happened in our penal institutions, with high rates among inmates, high rates among staff, and so on. And you can see that. That's pretty clear. You get a COVID outbreak in a prison, it's pretty much a done wrap. Nobody can go anywhere. You have to quarantine in the same place, blah, 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 blah. But a promise was made to these gentlemen before COVID, which started a tradition where we were meeting during Eid. And unfortunately, for the last couple of Eids, with COVID, it wasn't happening. We were having virtual Eids. And in the prisons, they weren't having Eids at all. So shout out to man Marvin Muhammad, who reached out to me. And I had done some programs with him in the Texas Corrections Department, Criminal Justice section. He's a Muslim chaplain, and he had asked me to come out, and we had talked about it. And we had gone out and done it before, and it went really well. The shows went really well, and the brothers were extremely appreciative. So this year, we were like, we're going to go back. And now we both knew, and he didn't have to say it to me, that things were really restrictive. They're fairly restrictive in terms of going back. So, and it wasn't because of inmates, it's just all of the protocols and all of the political decisions and the politics that are involved in this type of thing. So what we decided to do was, hey, we're going to do this, and all praise to Allah. Things worked out where when I finished what I was doing with this documentary, I was blessed. I was inspired to take a flight the day before this show as opposed to the day of, because the day of, that flight got canceled. Shout out to United. Y'all got to get your act together. But the way it starts is, he picks me up about 9:15, and we begin this travel. And what we're going to talk about is what that experience was, performing and talking about comedy and incarceration, and why humor is important, why we need to make sure that we keep, as much as we can, some smile on the faces of these guys. I went to 2 prisons. One was Ramsey Unit, the other one was Styles Unit in Beaumont, Texas. Ramsey is outside of Houston, maybe about 20, 25 minutes outside of Houston. But I walked away this particular time, but it was a bigger impact. More so because this was another time I was coming. I really hadn't been involved with the Texas Corrections Department. The federal shows, the federal prisons I work with, they're different level, but the state ones are different. We're going to talk about that. All right. So I just want to say shout out to everybody. I hope you had a great weekend. We're going to come back. We got a good show for you today, and shout out to everybody. I hope you had a great weekend. I'll be right back. Shout out to Sister Tana. Her and her crew went to the beach this weekend. I guess the annual Fire at the Beach thing. God bless. They had a good time, and we'll see her tomorrow, inshallah. Okay, we'll be right back here on the Shout Out Show, Preach Boss. All righty, and we're back, and I was not able to get him on the line today. I know he's busy, but one of my brothers, my Muslim brothers, Ali Sadiq, very funny comedian, who is a brother who spent some time in prison and has left prison, never came back, never went back, no recidivism issues with him, and he has launched a very very successful comedy career. So we're going to take a peek at that in a minute. But I just want everybody to sit back. Let me introduce my people in the box, my people who come through. First of all, we'll give a shout out, of course, to Sister Ree. How you doing, Sister Ree? Hope you're doing well. Peace and blessings to you. Are you back in town or are you still down south? I don't know. I was piddling around early this morning. I was like, I wonder if Ree's still down there. But in any event, you got duas coming for grandma. She battles her health issues. We hope that she gets better. I know she got better as soon as she saw your face. Also, shout out to Derek and the young scholar Juwan. I want to give a shout out to Brother Altoff. It's at 6 o'clock, straight up, straight down. Our Canadian ambassador to the show. Brother, we hope that you're doing well, man. We appreciate you, as always, tuning in. 6 o'clock your time, 5 o'clock Central Time, and 3 o'clock on the Pacific West Coast. All right. Now, got to give a shout out to my brother, wa alaikum assalam rahmatullah barakatuh, and to you, Altaf, wa alaikum assalam rahmatullah barakatuh. JT tuning in, man. Hey, bro, I got that Mercedes fever again, man. I got to talk to you. I think I need treatment, but that's how that happened from driving your car. So we'll talk about that a little later. But I hope you're doing well. I heard that Milwaukee is on fire in the 90s, brothers and sisters. When Milwaukee gets in the 90s, it's not the end of the world, but doggone it, you can see it from there. So I'm just saying it's all good. All right. And we got Sister Sonia Salahuddin, who's checking in. She's saying that Brother Bilal is cooking, so he's sending his salams from the pot, from the kitchen. Bilal, turn and it won't burn, brother. Turn and it won't burn. That's what it is. That's that old hood cooking right there. That's when you really couldn't cook anything other than spam sandwiches. Okay. So let me get us tuned up here. In fact, let me switch microphones, because I know that I did not do this correctly. So I put myself on another microphone. Okay. Today we're going to talk about this trip that I've made to the prison this weekend. One prison was in Beaumont. That is the Styles unit. And the other one is Ramsey unit, which is outside of Houston. Now, here's the deal, brothers and sisters. And I forgot. First and foremost, remember, if you ever get locked up in prison in Texas, I don't know how you're going to do it, but have your loved ones send you the largest fan that they could put in a box. Because in Texas state prisons, there are no air conditioners. The only way you get any kind of access to air conditioners is in the infirmary. And for a moment, I tried to figure out how to have the show in the infirmary. But the beauty was the brother, and then the wild part is They actually had expected me the week before. They had like 150 brothers waiting on me. The week before, I don't know what happened with the communication, but in any event, um, both shows went well. Both shows were hot as hell. And you began to take on some of that whole idea of what prison is because this time around, um, at the state level, I began to see how criminal justice really works. Not federal crimes, but state crimes. And the state running of penitentiaries, prisons is horrific. It is difficult to even get into the prison to do volunteer work, let alone be a quote unquote special guest. And all of these shows happen with a talim. And just so you know, talim is like religious instruction or, focused religious instruction on a certain topic or something like that. Not a Juma prayer, not a Juma kuppah. But they have it on Saturdays because the Muslim chaplains are overworked. So here I am on a Saturday doing this presentation, and it hits me. It's like, wow. Um, while we're laughing, the reality, the gravity of the situation is that, particularly in Ramsey unit, that the brother not going home. That this is almost like heightened TV for them. That someone comes in and converses with them the same way a volunteer would or another speaker would. I just happen to do comedy. But there's just in that space, it's just a resolute feeling that people are not quote unquote going home. That's the thing about being released. They call it going home, that people are not being released or not being released anytime soon. And that was the feeling at Ramsey. Ramsey was a weird prison because you get there and the imam is like, the warden and I don't get along. I'm like, well, that's not good. And you feel it. He said, I have a paperwork for my visitor and they can't find the paperwork. And we have to go in and speak to the warden that doesn't like him. The sister warden came out. She was really, really cool. I can't remember her name. Had really, really long cornrows. But we get there and it's like the first thing you do is you remember the last time you were there. And you look down on the ground and there are these yellow lines. Now, because there was no one in the hall, you just walk in. But the first time I remember being there, it was the fact that your whole life, if you're there for 10, 15, 20 years, your life is going to be expressed by walking on these yellow lines. So the whole idea doing the comedy was to take their minds off the yellow lines. And in some regard, give them some inspirational thought about religion, because these are the things that they're holding on to. So, I pulled up something from a friend of mine. I hope you guys like. He makes me laugh. Just listen. I just listen. We're not being judgmental. Just listen. Have a laugh.
Thinks they getting out. They think they gonna get out, no matter how heinous the crime is. You just massacred 15 people. They still sitting there. Somebody gonna make this bond. No, they not. White people always think they gonna get out. Black people, we know better. We know better. Your bond could be $60. It's still. And it's not the fact that your people ain't got the $60. You got to find somebody that's going to come down there and get you. I don't trust my ID to go down there and get you. I don't. Because I go down there, I don't know what's on my ID. I don't know what they ain't cleaned up yet, or a traffic ticket that may be just lingering somewhere. I done went down there with $60 to get you. Now we both down here, and I'm pissed. And I am pissed. Everybody that's
just a little taste, my brother Ali Sadiq. Check him out. He just released a video called our comedy special called Domino Effect, and I would like to maybe get some permission for him to showcase Domino Effect. I even have him on the show, inshallah. Good brother. But you know what? That was true, man. And what I find was you do comedy for the inmates. It's things that you don't talk about. Don't linger too long on mothers. Don't linger too long on children because they're human beings. And this is a group of men. This is not like a mixed audience. This is a group of men. It was predominantly African American men who had somewhere along the line in their lives had embraced Islam, and it allowed them to be in this space. Now you can sit there, and if you put them in any of the clothes in white, because everybody got to wear white, if you were to see them on the street, man, they look like your relatives. They look like your homeboy. They look like your cousin or your uncle or whatever. Understanding that inside the prison, they've been stripped of these roles. They're not allowed to be fathers. They're not allowed to be uncles. They're not allowed to be grandfathers or cousins or brothers. Prison strips that role. But here was the good thing about being able to do comedy in prison. It is knowing that the material you're going to do, everybody has a decision as to whether they're going to laugh at it or not. What they laugh at is probably the last thing that's not taken from them. The freedom to process a joke is amazing, and it's amazing to watch them because they discern very carefully about what they're laughing about because choices. Prison is a representation of bad choices or poor choices. And it's interesting to watch them discern what they laugh at. And it's nice to be brought back or be requested to come back to perform at the prisons because it's hard to make them laugh. You don't got to make them laugh. You got to kill them where they lay because you wanted to make sure that when you leave, they tell other prisoners. So the joy in coming back was that they told other prisoners. So you were on the line over here. You on the prison over here spoke to the prison over there. And it's interesting that, of course, the whole communication scope. But it's interesting that they were letting folks know, oh, yeah, dude's coming. So even by the time you get to Beaumont, and I had not been to Beaumont, people were really excited to hear the show. And I'm like, wow, this is cool. At Beaumont, because of the time of the prayer, what was really cool was, and I know a brother walked up, he didn't mean anything by it. But it's a little bit of dissonance type of deal. The brother goes, well, hey, listen, man, we getting ready to pray. And he goes, you gonna pray with us? And I'm like, of course I'm gonna pray with you. I'm trying to figure out what time we're gonna do it. So after the show, it's interesting. But they had another guy that came up after me, and his name was Farouk. It was kind of interesting because he was trying to give dawah after the comedy show, and brothers were like being real polite. But I'm like, you just had 45 minutes of comedy. Let that dawah stand as it may, and let's get to it. And the brother asked me if I would, pray with him. And it's like, absolutely. And that's probably the highlight. I think the first time I ever did a show, a prison show, was a federal facility in Colorado. And I did a bunch of shows with the understanding that if I did all these shows, so they made me do a lot of shows in Colorado because they have segregated units. They have the Muslim unit, they have the Christian unit, which is called the God Pod. They have security people, and they have a sexual offender unit. That show sucked. But yeah. And I did it with the understanding that they were going to allow me to go to Juma with the inmates. I'll get back to that story in a minute. But in Beaumont, they included me in ShOUT to pray Zohar prayer. And an older brother, I was in the back where there was no rug. No rug, no problem. And another brother gave up his section on the rug so I could come to the front, so I didn't have to pray on the concrete floor. And I'm going to tell you guys something. I almost don't make the show. I didn't even tell you, man. I almost don't make the show because coming from D.C. to Texas, D.C. was like 60, 70 degrees. It sets me up perfectly for allergies. Then when I get back to Texas, it's like 95, 100 degrees. So my allergies are all over the place. So I got to come up with this weird balance of Claritin and Robitussin, one for the sneeze and one for the cough to be able to go to the show. Incidentally, and I won't go too long today, I basically am dealing with the fact that I'm losing my voice in between the shows. The first show is rough. I'm losing my voice. I don't talk to the Imam too much. We have lunch at a Burger King. Thank you, Imam. We had 2 Impossible burgers, and I had some iced tea, even though they didn't have any lemon. I know they had lemon at that Burger King. But in any event, we go and we do the second show. But the first show was really, really nice. And the reason why I said it was nice is because they invited me to lead the Zuhr prayer. They asked me if I would lead. And I was like, well, you're in the Amir. And I said, okay. And I led, and it was nice. The best part about the shows is not the comedy and the laughter. You do like that. It's just the fellowship afterwards. To be amongst brothers and talk amongst things. How are you? How's your family? How's your health? Is anything, how are you being treated? Things like that. They don't even tell you about how they're being treated. They just very, very thankful that you came. So I'm going to say this. Comedy and incarceration is that they need not just the humor, is that we have to do a better job of fellowship. Starting with me, we have to do a better job of fellowship. Even when I'm not telling jokes, I need to be in just checking on brothers, make sure that they're okay. Locked behind these bars, it's easy to be forgotten. Let me say that again. Locked behind these bars is very easy to be forgotten. It's very easy to become a number or faint memory, and it happens with families, it happens with relationships. So I'm going to, emphasize that we do as much as we can reach out and check on the brothers. Like I said, I'm not anybody special. If I'd have gone in and played a kazoo, these brothers would have been happy. If I played a banjo with 1 string, they'd have been happy. Why? Because it's the wherewithal and it's the emotional equity, if you will, that people still care. So even doing the shows is great, but I'm like, we need to do that. And comedy incarceration is different. I will continue to do these shows, but I'm going to also emphasize that next time, maybe some volunteers come. Not female volunteers. Well, the federal show, the females got to come, but that's totally different. But, we can't bring the families. Maybe we can bring the families. Maybe we can come up with something where they can laugh with their families. Or they can laugh with people who represent some type of hope. And I would really, really emphasize that these state governments do allow for some vestige of arts to come back into the prisons. These guys are incredible artists. They're incredible thinkers. Of course, we say, well, all of that, they're so smart, they wind up in prison. Listen, it does not take a long time to make a bad choice. It takes a split decision to make a bad choice. I'm trying to remember the guy. I can't remember, Wallow or something like that. And the guy talked about being in prison, and he was in a cell with a guy, and the guy said, let me see your paperwork, your illegal paperwork. And he said, so for your crime, which equates to like 3-4 minutes, you got 25 years. And it was stunning. But we need to throw that out. I always say that the prison justice is, because I do visit and investigate other prison systems around the United States, and they are not that harsh. They're not that punitive. That they do, like in Sweden or Copenhagen, they do work on rehabilitation of these people. People make mistakes. And the one thing about comedy is, it allows all of us to be vulnerable. I can talk about mistakes I made. I can talk about how I think, and guys can judge me, and they can laugh. They cannot laugh. These things are natural, but I'm going to emphasize, that our state governments and all of us at some point in time, just reach out to people. And now, if you don't know somebody's in prison, somebody whose son or daughter is in prison, reach out to them, because they are the ones that need support. So there also needs to be some kind of community support for the families of the guys who are in prison, because they actually worry about their families more than they worry about themselves. All right, so we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back here and we'll wrap up here on the ShOUT Show talking about comedy and incarceration.
Hey,
babies. Welcome to Radio WCUC, Convenient Urgent Care, home of the smart patient. This is DJ What It Do. You know what time it is. It's the top of the hour, and the request lines are open. You know what you want to hear. I know what you want to hear. Operators are waiting.
I just got to hear don't get the COVID.
Don't get the COVID. Put your mask back on. The Delta COVID, more contagious than before. Don't get the COVID. Go on and get the vaccine. You know that it can keep you safe, and your people living up in your space. Don't get the COVID. You need to wash your hands. The Delta COVID is more deadly than before. Don't get the COVID. Go on and get your vaccine. You know that it can keep you from dying. Don't leave your family all alone and crying. Don't get the COVID.
We invite you to join our fight against COVID and against misinformation. It's time to listen to the doctors and trust the science.
When I think of people dying that don't have to die, it makes me sad. Now's the time to be sober. Together we can make this thing over. Let's fight the COVID. Convenient urgent care, home of the smart patient.
All right, we're back. Sister Sonny said Bilal is going to volunteer to go to the prisons. Bilal, I'm going to hook you up myself. Imam Marvin Muhammad. So the next time we go, you can come on out there, brother. I've talked to Imam Tari El Amin, who just received his master's in chaplaincy. He's a Muslim. He's a new Muslim chaplain. So we're also kind of trying to come up with a program that we can actually take around. You know, I do a little comedy. He does some speaking. Bilal, you can do a little talking to the guys too. You know, whatever we can do to make this thing better, that's what we're trying to do. All right. And Sister Reed said that she is home from Alabama. They tried to kidnap her in Alabama. Guys, glad you're back. Glad you're back. So, you know, and it was interesting. It's interesting because everything about going to these prisons is really like just a really big Timberland footprint on your heart. The way you're treated when you go in. This is as visitors. I can only imagine what families go through. It's just not an easy process to go see your loved ones. And I'm talking about your loved ones, not me just going to do comedy. I'm talking about your loved ones, the people that you share your life with. And even when we got to Ramsey, I just wanted to take a picture, a little video of going in the Ramsey. And the ma'am said, we can't do that. I said, why? He said, because these people will think that you are videotaping to help coordinate an escape. I'm like, okay. And I was like, wow. Like, this is true incarceration. But laughter liberates. Laughter liberates. A smile frees, if you will. And so my job for that 45 minutes, 50 minutes was to make sure that I helped them have levity in their hearts, that they didn't work about, they ain't worry about, when they got to go back to the cell and all of that, that they had a good time. So even when they went back, they might, on a bad day, bust out laughing, thinking about something crazy I said, or some inmate trying to retell my jokes badly, which I don't mind. It's just the fact that brothers found something that was positive that they could do. It's just like if I was a singer and I could really, really sing. I can't. But if I could really, really sing and if I did a good job, these brothers would sing my songs. And they would enjoy the song. So it was that way with comedy. So let me tell you what they wanted to tell you, what they wanted to relate to you through me. Number one, please don't forget about them. While they've made mistakes in their life, God allows for redemption and repentance. And all of them say, they've asked for repentance from God. Redemption won't happen, understandably, until they get out of prison. And they try to make good and they try to make people whole over things they did, that they try to re-earn your trust. That's number one. Number two, they say they don't feel it, but please pray for them. Pray for them. Pray for their families. Pray for their well-being. Pray for their souls. Pray for their spirits. All right? So we want to go ahead and give a shout out to our folks, BeFinancialIndependent.com. Again, that's BeFinancialIndependent.com. You call 202-508-3780. Again, that's 202-508-3780. Also, want to give a shout out to UsHub.tv. Again, that's UsHub.tv. Shout them out. And we even going to get a shout out to Bayan Islamic Graduate School that produced masters from people like myself, Imam Tariq Al-Amin, Imam Suleiman Hamid, Imam Rashdan. We got a lot of people, man, Idris, a lot of black folk came through there, all right? And we cannot forget, of course, we cannot forget convenienturgentcare.com, 3 locations in Pasadena, Cypress, and Houston on Parker Road. And we also want to give a shout out to, Islamic Relief USA. Again, that's Islamic Relief USA. Thank you guys so much. I hope you had a great time. I hope you enjoyed the show. Apologies for my voice. Inshallah, it'll be a little bit better tomorrow. Okay? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. See you tomorrow.